This is the Court Leader's Advantage, a podcast series for court professionals and by court professionals. Brought to you by thecourtleader.net and in cooperation with NACM, the National Association for Court Management. It wasn't that long ago that the phrase, "you're lucky to have a job," was powerful advice. Nowadays, employers across multiple business sectors are complaining of unfilled staff positions. Shortages of teachers and restaurant workers immediately come to mind. On the other hand, just recently, we have once again been hearing about massive layoffs. Google, Meta, Disney, and Amazon have all recently laid off workers. Has the balance of power between job applicants and employers shifted? Has it shifted in favor of the applicants? And if it has, will it last? I'm Pete Kiefer, and welcome to the Court Leader's Advantage podcast series. This month, we're looking at courts and the hiring crisis. Do job candidates right now hold the upper hand in the hiring process? And what are courts doing to cope? Here to discuss these questions are Dana Bartocci, Human Resources and Development Director for the Minnesota State Judicial Branch; Beth Urban, Human Resources Director for the South Dakota State Court System in Pierre, South Dakota; Vicky Bartholomew, Minor Judiciary Administrator in Westchester, Pennsylvania; and Nick Sudzina, Court Administrator for the 10th Judicial Circuit Court in Bartow, Florida. Thank you all for joining today's podcast. Time was that employers held almost all the leverage in employee recruitment and selection. In your experience, has that leverage shifted? If it has, how long do you think it's going to last? Dana Bartocci?
Sure. If I knew how long it would last, I'm sure that I would buy a lottery ticket right now, too. We are seeing signs that it is shifting, but it's cyclical. Those of us who've been in a system long, especially hiring in legal fields, etc., we know that it comes and goes with the market. But I also want to think that that is good, right? It may not feel good when we're in it, when we're unable to hire folks, we're, have a small group, but also the flip side, when we have hundreds of applicants, can also be a negative effect on our court. When we have a cycle like we're in now, we're losing the people we want to keep, and that's not great. But when we're in a cycle where folks are not being hired away, we're also losing innovation. We're losing the ability to promote folks. We're losing the ability to really look at our system and move it and progress folks in it. So although the balance of quote unquote power is, in our applicants, I wouldn't even call it power. It is just a different way that we have to look at hiring our folks and retaining our folks during this time.
Vicky Bartholomew?
Yes, I certainly agree with what Dana just had to say. The power right now is with the applicant. They have extreme leverage in what they want, and they have a lot of experience, and job seekers now are more selective than ever. I think what their shift is too is in what they're looking to see is what is more attractive in a job for them. And right now, I can't seem to offer a lot of what these job applicants want. I think that the shift is here to stay. And Dana, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's going to be this cycle and it's going to go away. To me, it seems to be like applicants used to sell themselves. And now I feel like during an interview, I have to sell the county. I have to sell the position. I have to highlight the meaningful work. But also I have to tell job seekers, why this is the place for them, why this is the position for them. It's just the job seekers have never been more selective, and I'm finding it to be quite the challenge.
Beth Urban?
We're seeing this right now that the employees have the leverage in a lot of it, but I also believe that the employer will always have a slight advantage because we're the person that's seeking to fill the position. And I do think that it'll be cyclical. And I think the part that I think is really good for us as an employer, what it forces us to do is look internally and become better at our hiring practices. And that's, to me, was pretty exciting as well. I agree with what Dana said with regard to innovation, but I think it's exciting to be able to look at your hiring practices and ensure that we're doing the things that we probably should have been doing to attract those applicants anyway, and really making sure that we're sharpening those tools and making that heightened in our practices.
Nick, Sudzina?
Yes, I too think that the leverage has shifted to the prospective employee. They think they can be more selective about the jobs they seek. And it's more difficult for us in the state court system to keep up with salaries offered and how we compete with the private sector. We have to look at other factors we offer in the workplace, like working conditions, a place we can almost guarantee they will enjoy working in if they give us a chance for advancement. We could also offer a workplace that places high standards on ethics and professionalism. And I think those are qualities that make our organization so special, at least to me. That's one of the features about our employment. It should be most attractive to people. And of course, people want a work-life balance too. Younger group wants to know when they will get their first paycheck and their first pay raise. In our circuit, we recruit many people from the clerk's office because we pay more. However, the clerk is going to the state legislature right now to seek more money to pay their people. And we may lose that fertile recruiting ground that we have with the clerk's office and might have to look elsewhere for some of our entry-level positions. So it's very competitive, but I think the leverage is focusing more towards the applicant right now.
When looking at applications for a supervisor or management position, are there specific types of experiences that you're looking for? Are there words or phrases that would likely get a candidate an interview? Beth?
I'm really not looking for phrases or terms that trigger, but what I am looking for is someone who's demonstrated that they're a problem solver or is curious and can dig into things. So I'm looking for someone who has experience in critical thinking, decision making, that's shown curiosity and persistence, and has kind of able to take criticism in a positive way. And those are the things I'm kind of looking for when I'm looking through their experience.
Nick?
Yes, I agree with Beth. We want the person to talk. We want them to give quick, concise answers to difficult questions. We want them to speak. We do look at previous job experience that they supervise and manage in government or the private sector. Did they have a job in the justice system? We want someone who has good organizational skills, problem-solving skills, and we present scenarios to them. We tell them, hey, your judge was seen at the copy machine making 40 copies of Vogue magazine. What are you going to do about it? And we want them to come up with quick answers and think. So, what would you do? So we try to see where they stand on ethics and professionalism and their communication skills. So, there's a lot of things we try to put them on the spot for. We want them to be comfortable in interview. Most of the time they are not, but we want them to think too and come up with problem-solving situations in which they could excel.
So Nick, I've got to ask, what is the right answer to a question when you're judge making 40 copies of Vogue?
Well, I think you you go to your supervisor and tell them, right? Now, if I'm the TCA and I see the judge, well, then I don't know what I'm going to do. How much do I treasure my job, or how much can I sleep at night? So I think I would have to say something to the judge. We'll be glad to take your check for those copies you're making, something like that.
Now, most folks on interview panels have questions that they like to ask because they find the candidate's response particularly revealing, especially for supervisor or management positions. Do you have a question that you particularly like to ask? And what would be the kind of answer that you'd be looking for? Vicky?
Well, the question that I always ask is, what are the qualities of a good supervisor? I ask this question so I can learn about the candidate's leadership style and to find out who they are as a supervisor. I'm looking for an answer that can help describe, if they will fit into the position, how will they connect with the team? Are they team, players? Do they value their team? And how do they communicate with staff and establish relationships? I want to know what they think about a strong supervisor so I can find out, as been mentioned before, are they critical thinkers? Are they problem solvers? What are important management skills to them? So, and I do find that when I ask this question, their responses are generally telling about who they are as a supervisor.
Nick?
Yes, I think we want to know why they want this job and what qualities they think they possess that differentiate them from others. Also ask them things like what would the first thing they'd do if they were hired, and they can take constructive criticism. How would they handle a difficult employee, and maybe tell us about a difficult employment situation they had in their previous job and how they handled it. We want to know why they applied for a job. We recently had someone from the clerk's IT department that came to work with us for the same pay he was making with the clerk, and we asked him why. And he said he likes our work culture better than the clerk. So made the same pay, came over in the same position, and he's flourishing with us. So we want to know why people want to work with us. And we try to, in turn, tell them the value we can provide from our organization to their employment situation.
Court administrators I've been talking to are seeing increasing numbers of candidates applying for court jobs with little or no court experience or even justice experience. Are you finding that to be the case, Vicky?
Yeah, I am absolutely. A lot of the applicants I'm very surprised at, and we're getting a lot from the medical fields, like folks who are leaving like doctor's offices and things, and I'm very surprised by that. But most of the applicants have no experience in the justice system, and they're just looking for a new adventure.
Dana?
Yes, we are, and it's not a bad thing, right? When we're hiring folks, maybe when the tables are turned and we're able to get law graduates to do our frontline staff clerking jobs, they have maybe less satisfaction, sometimes more. They might want to move on faster, higher turnover. When we have people pick us to try something new, as Vicky said, a new adventure, it really can be beneficial. And thinking of our roles as customer service, right? Database management, there are so many different things that other industries do that we can get ideas and get candidates that way. We're no longer able to only accept folks with court experience, and I would argue that that's a good thing. We do need folks with some court experience, but the balance between the two, when people come in with other either management experience or customer service, all day long, I think of the people that wait at me when I get my coffee, and they're amazing customer service folks. Wouldn't that be a breath of fresh air? In some places too, that type of customer service, depending on the job, might be more beneficial than a legal background.
I keep hearing from court administrators that especially younger job applicants are increasingly demanding. What are younger job candidates asking for? And can courts provide what younger candidates want? Dana?
Sure. They're talking about remote and hybrid opportunities. We're going to talk about that in a question coming up, so stay tuned. But they're also wanting to know about our mission, our values, what training opportunities we have, what is the opportunity to promote, all of those things. When I look at that and I hear the word demanding and put it next to that list, demanding might be a little negative of a term to look at our job candidates. They might be assertive in truly understanding what they want, or even more so, a more positive term might even be purposeful. They're looking for a purposeful environment where they know what they want. So I have a background as a career counselor, and I would counsel someone to be purposeful in their job search. They don't want a job, right? Are we going to hire someone? We just talked about, we want to know why they want this job. And so they do come in with questions to make sure it's this job and it's a fit. I'm hoping that it'll lead to more retention of folks because they are matching better what they're looking for. Now, of course, there can be demanding, like I want every Friday off and I don't work past 4:30, even if a case is going long. And those are a different set of things that we as an employer can weed out. We want folks who can meet our needs, but some of the things that they're asking for, my generation asked for parenting leave instead of maternity leave. Now most policies are parenting leave. I guarantee when we were asking for that at my former employer, they thought we were being demanding, right? But it was a way to change the work environment for the better for everyone. And some of the things that they're asking for, our more senior employees are also really excited about, whether it's hybrid opportunities or other things. So, I don't know if it might seem like they're demanding, but I would change it a little bit to being assertive or purposeful.
Beth?
I think absolutely remote flexibility, the work environment, they're looking for something that matches their culture, their morals, their values. And I find that to be a positive thing as well. I mean, it's both good for them as an employee and it's good for us as an employer because we get the good fit with someone who also values what we value. And so it's a positive all the way around.
Peter, I think the younger candidate feels that they are entitled. They want to come in, they want to know when they're going to get their first pay raise. They want to know about opportunities for advancement, as Dana mentioned. But we have to give them realistic expectations. Sometimes there's no chance for advancement for a long, long time. And as far as pay raises, I mean, that's contingent upon what the legislature might approve for a cost of living increase, and that may be nothing at all. And I think many of the younger people, they don't so much embrace the 9-to-5 workday either. They want to set their own work hours, and we have to ask ourselves, is that something we can do in their department? But they also want to make an instant contribution. They don't want to be treated as a junior anything. They want to contribute right away and move up the ladder. And we have to make sure that they know that they can be vital to our court and our operations. And I think they're also looking maybe for the boss to be their advocate, someone they could bond to in the workplace as their work advocate.
Flex time and remote work seem to be a major point of contention with job candidates. During COVID, many courts relied on it. However, many court administrators despise it. And yet it seems that many job candidates very much want it. How important have you found it in hiring? And is it still an option for courts? Nick?
Yes, we allow remote work in most situations up to 2 days a week. However, the person has to be approved by their supervisor, and we offer that as a job perk if they ask about it. But they have to show a work product too. It just can't be you're working from home and that's it. They have to show the results of their workday. We had to be careful about the message we give when people are working remotely. We can't have the help desk answering the phone and say, well, he can't come to your office now because he's working remotely. We need to make sure we give another message. Or we have a judge or secretary saying, they're leaving an email response saying, I'm working remotely today, so I will return your phone call tomorrow. That's not the way it works. You return that phone call today if you're at work. So we had to be careful on the message we give to the public and our other justice system partners. But we do offer remote work, and it's worked very well on our circuit. And I know other judicial circuits in the state of Florida have adopted this policy as well.
Vicky?
Well, I can't agree more that these two areas are a great issue when it comes to hiring and retaining employees. I have lost many great longtime employees to remote jobs, and not only did they get the remote aspect, but they also got higher salaries. So I can't compete with that opportunity to work remotely. Most of our jobs you have to work on site. We're open for the public, and there's just no opportunity to work remotely. However, you do get 2 extra days off since you can't work remotely, so that's the only bonus that we're offering at this time. I will say that I don't know that anybody's turned down my jobs because of that specific issue, but I've had applicants turn down positions because they've got better paying jobs. One thing that I've learned to be is a little bit more flexible. As candidates want to be more flexible, I've had to become more flexible. In the past, if a candidate said, I need some to leave a few hours early here or there because I'm going to grad school or I have daycare issues, I may not be willing to do that. But now I understand that good candidates and to retain employees, I have to be a little bit more flexible. I just hired an employee last week who's starting grad school in the fall, and she said, I have to leave about a half an hour early 2 days a week. Is that going to be a problem? And since she is such a great applicant and I wanted to keep her in her workforce, I said, sure, we'll work it out. So I'm learning to be flexible as well.
Beth?
So our jobs are really not remote either. We have most of our jobs are on site, and even during COVID in South Dakota, we worked in the offices. We didn't have really remote work here, but we do have flexible kind of schedules that we do, adjusted schedules and flexible. And I think we are seeing some applicants that want, the remote all the time. And I don't foresee that in the court system we'll ever be able to accommodate a remote all the time kind of schedule. But we absolutely, work with employees that can be flexible and we encourage that. We believe in a work-life balance as well.
Dana?
Early in the pandemic, Minnesota looked at its, at that time called teleworking policy, right? We've even changed the name to remote work, and made a bold move. Instead of saying we allow remote work, we chose to promote remote work. This doesn't mean that every single person gets to work remotely. It's business need for being in the office. And, as Beth said, a lot of these folks are, needed to be, and Vicky to be at the counter, to be at the ready. That doesn't mean the way we've always done business has to continue that way. We have a lot of folks working remotely on a rotating basis, where they do get 1 or 2 days home, hybrid. Even in HR, we have folks who cover the office. One person a day is in the office to make sure it's covered. And we also really looked at what does on-site mean for business need. And that has challenged some groups to really think what really needs to be on-site and what doesn't. As well as we have an online hearing initiative that looks at the need of our court users. And it turns out, the court users are really liking the online format. And so there's a lot more information, not related to our employees, but they kind of go hand in hand to, offer that remote environment for access to justice, also allows more employees to be remote if they're doing more remote access to justice work too. So we've really looked at it. Some of the research is what has helped as well. The latest research shows that hybrid employees are the most productive employees versus all on site or all at home. And a lot of organizations are going to that hybrid model rather than fully remote. So I hope in the future we won't be losing as many folks to fully remote opportunities. We actually had somebody turn one down because the entire finance office was going remote, and she really wanted an in-person. But that goes back to, choosing what kind of environment you want to be in, and then they'll be more successful for our organization as well. So it is definitely an option, but it's taken a lot of work to figure out how to align it with operational needs.
And finally, what is the one takeaway you would like folks tuning into today's episode to come away with? Vicky?
Well, I would say when you're interviewing candidates, when you're trying to hire, folks, emphasize the meaningful work that we do and how important of a job it is, how stable, how secure it is, dealing with customers and how rewarding this job can be, but also to try to be flexible when you can and try to incorporate the work-life balance that and applicants are now looking for.
Dana?
two things. The first is HR cannot fix it all, right? Supervisors and managers have more sway with their employees with recruitment and retention. And we're also going to need to look at doing work differently. The recruitment problem, as Vicky said in the beginning, she's like, I'd like to think it's cyclical, but I don't see this ending. With our demographics that we're seeing, we do have less people in general that we can hire, at least in the state of Minnesota. So we are going to have to look at doing work differently. And that's something that HR can help with, but really has to be, how do we do our work, which is a bigger question possibly for another podcast. And then second is, this isn't all bad. How are we looking at our processes and our procedures? It only takes one good candidate to get the right person in there. And how are we looking at things to make our employment situation better, to value the mission, to get more pay raises at the legislature for our employees, bigger hopefully than we've ever had in the past. These are all good things that have been brought on by this market cycle. And, it's not all bad. So how do we focus? I'm a little bit of the glass half full today, but how do we focus on what we can do? Because we can't change it.
Beth?
I think the one takeaway I would like people to take away is I think it's important to remember that the interview process is a two-way street. So you have to be respectful and professional in all of it. So the applicants are always going to want to negotiate their best situation, and the employer is always going to want to hire their talent, the best talent for the position. And really, they want what's best for each position. And so everybody's going to need to be flexible, and that's how we've always had to be. So really the changes make us be more creative and innovative in every way, the employer, the employee, and the applicant, and that all makes us a better organization.
Nick?
I think we have to look at our values we have ingrained in our court system so we can instill public trust and confidence in the third branch of government. We have to do our best to hire good people who embrace our value system and work for a common cause of serving our judges and the public and raising the public perception of the courts. What does a new employee bring to our court system, and how will they make a difference? We want to provide a professional work environment for them. We want them to be excited about coming to work in our court system. So that's a challenge when we interview people and have to make those tough decisions on who to hire.
I want to thank Nick Sudzina, Beth Urban, Dana Bartocci, and Vicky Bartholomew for letting us hear their insights and advice about the shifting leverage in employee hiring. This seems to be a very fluid part of court administration. We'll want to watch how it evolves in the upcoming months and years. As always, my thanks to you court professionals tuning in to today's episode. No matter how employee selection changes in the future, I know you will approach the hiring process thoughtfully, carefully, and professionally. Thank you. Join us on Tuesday, June 20th, for another episode dealing with the issues facing our courts. This has been the Court Leaders Advantage podcast series. I'm Pete Kiefer, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us today. The Court Leaders Advantage is a regular podcast on courts and court administration. Today's episode will be available on our website, on YouTube, on Facebook, on iTunes, on LinkedIn, and on Twitter. Become part of the conversation. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, email us. Our address is CLApodcast, that's all one word, @nacomnet.org. Did you hear an interesting comment by one of the panelists that you would like to listen to again, but you don't want to search through the entire episode to find it? The additional resources section of the webpage contains a question time marker sheet. Just find the discussion question on the sheet, and next to it is the time that question was asked. You can then quickly fast forward to that time in the episode and listen to the panelists' comments. Remember, if you don't have time to watch an episode, you can always listen to the audio version. Listen in your car or on the bus on your way to or from work. You never have to miss an episode. I'm Pete Kiefer, and on behalf of our guests, the Court Leader website, and the National Association for Court Management, thank you, and have a great day. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the host and the individual presenters. They do not necessarily represent the position of the National Association for Court Management.